Last week, members of the House's China Task Force, they released their final report, which featured more than 400 recommendations on how the U.S. can counter threats posed by the Chinese Communist Party. So joining me to discuss the findings, Task Force member and Republican representative of Wisconsin's 8th Congressional District, Congressman Mike Gallagher. Congressman, thanks for joining me. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Congressman, tell us a little bit about this report, some of the findings that you guys have within there, and what's important about this.
Well, since May, we've been hard at work on this report. We had 15 members representing 11 different committees on the task force, and we examined everything from ideological competition, national security, supply chain security, technology, economics, overall competitiveness. And after months of study, we've come up with 80 key findings, 400 concrete recommendations to better position the United States to compete and win against communist China. But I think in many ways, the most important recommendation is the first, which is that the administration should clearly and publicly state that it is our intention to break the Chinese Communist Party. Like Reagan, our North Star must not be indefinite coexistence with a hostile communist state, but rather to end the party's monopoly on power in China. And starting from that position, I think allows us to better leverage our values and our alliances in the competition. My only wish is that our Democratic colleagues have participated in this report. You'll see most of the recommendations are bipartisan. I see no reason why they couldn't have participated, but Nancy Pelosi would not let them do that for fear of distracting from her attacks on President Trump. She didn't want them to take a hard look at China. So that's unfortunate, but we put out a bipartisan report nonetheless.
Got it. Congressman, let me ask you this. Whenever you say that stuff about communist China to break the communist regime, sounds a lot like regime change. Is that what you're calling for, or is there a middle ground here?
No. What we're saying is we hope that in the future, the Chinese people have the ability to choose their own regime, and that people that live in mainland China aren't oppressed by the Communist Party, especially minority groups, such as the over 1 million Uighur Muslims that are in a modern-day concentration camp right now. And I just highlight to say that's another area where we have an opportunity to lay the foundation for a bipartisan foreign policy approach. I mean, think about some of the loudest voices when it comes to criticizing the Chinese Communist Party for their treatment of Uighur Muslims have actually come from the far left in the House. Card-carrying members of the Squad, like Ilhan Omar, have been relentless in their attacks of the Chinese Communist Party. So I think we all need to stand strong in pointing out the egregious human rights abuses by the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree, sir. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of resistance from big business at the restrictions that are going to have to be put into place. Could you talk about that? I mean, what is the reality that business community is going to have to live with if we're going to get tough on China?
Well, you're certainly right that there are certain industries, particularly Hollywood and the NBA, who have sold their soul to make money in China. And I think at some point they are going to have to make a choice and decide which team they want to play for. Do they want to play for the free world and stand up for the very values that allow them to produce great art or compete athletically in freedom and security? Or do they want to play for a regime that stands in opposition to those very values? And I think over the long term, we also need to be confident, not only in terms of our values, but economically. We have a network of allies that Communist China can never hope to assemble. And we have enormous economic power if we stand together. And we simply cannot allow the Chinese Communist Party to coerce Hollywood into changing narratives in film or destroying a classic like Top Gun and altering certain messages in that, or destroying another classic like the remake of Red Dawn. That's just not how we operate in America. We can't be bullied, and we can't bend the knee to General Secretary Xi.
Yeah, I mean, Top Gun is where they really got me. Last question for you, sir. You are a congressman from the state of Wisconsin, a critical swing state. How is the issue of China playing in your own home state, and especially with respect to Joe Biden, who appears to be leading in the polls there?
Well, I think blue-collar workers in Wisconsin, I mean, we're a blue-collar state. You know, this is a state where people work with their hands and they work hard. They understand that the opening to China, the failure of integrating China into the global economy has resulted in the decimation of millions of manufacturing jobs in the Midwest. And I think most Wisconsinites welcome the tougher approach to China that has been ushered in by the Trump administration and that we've supported in Congress. And so I think this issue should be front and center in the campaign. I think Vice President Biden will have a hard time defending 47 years of being weak on China. And my hope, my sincere hope, is that no one in his advisory circle is advising him to go back to the status quo ante. advising him to cave to the party and to really destroy a lot of the progress that we've made in recent years. Because, again, I just think this can be a bipartisan foundation for the future of U.S. foreign policy.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, sir. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Yep. One more Rising for you after this.